Out of all of the builds that I've tried, Inferno and Holy, they are the most powerful of them all. They get so very broken and they leave everything in the dust because of how much damage, base damage, melee damage that they can deal, and how much versatility they have when it comes to the spells, the usage of spells that they are going to have. This guy specifically, he's going to be able to deal like 25 to 30, 100 damage on one single charge heavy attack, so it's actually quite filthy, and it makes me really happy. Now, out of all of the builds that we have already posted here on the channel, like I said, I've tried them all. I've tried the Umbral, I've tried the Holy, Strength. We're still going to upload the Agility one, the Quality one, and then we can start focusing onto the quality between Strength and Fade, Dexterity and Fade, Strength Inferno, Dexterity Inferno, things like that and what have you. But out of them all, these two guys are the most powerful of them all. Holy and Inferno. The difference, and why is it one better than the other? I'd say that the real battle between the meta of the builds in this game is going to be either between Holy and Inferno, and there's variables that change them apart from each other on how effective can they be when it comes to the tools that they have. And what I mean by that is that one is going to be more powerful than the other one, but the other one is going to be more versatile and more approachable when it comes to one single playthrough that you are going to have. Like, for example, this gets good when you start the class as the Rogar Lord. Once you finish the game, you get the Rogar finish and ending. That's ideally when I would recommend for you to make this class. Otherwise, it really is not that good. If you do not have the starting class, it's not going to be as good. It's not that you cannot make it, it's just that it's not going to be that good because of one single very specific spell. And that is the main difference. When it comes to pure, raw damage and destructiveness, once you have finally established the builds, the Rogar Inferno Lord build is going to be far stronger than the Holy Paladin. Much stronger. The thing is that the Paladin is a very beginner friendly approachable build that you can start building as soon as you start the game, because the very first boss of the game is going to give you the weapon, which is going to be Pieta's sword, and it's also going to give you the spell to buff your weapon. The spell to buff your weapon increases your damage. The range is like between 4 to 500 depending on what type of enemies that you are using. So yeah, I'd say that those are the most powerful one. The thing is with the Inferno one is, again, pattern redundancy. If you not have the Rogar starting class, if you haven't finished the game with the bad ending, the Rogar ending of the game, you do not have the starting class, you get the buff that buffs your weapon, gives you like 500 damage until the very end game. So that actually quite sucks. So there's that. Needless to say, that is what you need to know about this build if you want to make it. If you want to make it as your first playthrough as something that you do not have this class already unlocked, it is still possible, it is still viable, it's still going to be very strong. Just to have in mind that some tools, main tools of this build, you're not going to have access to them until the very late end game areas of the game. That out of the way, let's just talk about the stats and what we are going to have. Remember that we have the soft caps around 40 to 50. We have a soft cap on 40 where you're going to get 60 damage per, 70 damage per 10 points into investment. And then we have the 50 soft cap between 40 to 50 where you get 60 instead of the 70. And then we have a hard cap at 75. Beyond 75, it really is not worth it to place any more points. And then 99 onward, that is the hard cap, because you're not going to get anything in return for the damage in that. So we're going to have 75, and then vitality we're going to have that on 40, and endurance we're going to have that on 20. We're not going to be able to use anything else with this character, and you do have to tweak your armor quite a little bit because it's a very heavy weapon. It weighs 41 pounds, I believe. So you're not going to be able to use a sword. It's just going to be you, your weapon, and your catalyst, and that's it. That's for a 110 template for a character build. Of course, if you want to use something a little bit extra, you can sprinkle some points into endurance a little bit more. If you want to use a shield or you want to use heavier armor, that's up to your personal preference. But for the build to be finally established at the end game, it's going to be like this. Now let's talk about how can I build this guy on early game and how can I do on mid game. Like I said, if you're going to have the Rogue or Lord starting class, you're going to immediately begin at level 25 and you're going to have quite a lot of Inferno. You're going to have 22 Inferno. My recommendation is that regardless of that, if you're going to start with the Pirate Cultist, the early game you're going to have 18 Inferno. At that point you can place 15 points into Endurance, 15 points into Vitality. That is going to be your early game. Mid game, you want to range between 30 to 40 Inferno. Your Vitality should be on 25, and mid game you should already have your Endurance to 20. That is going to be like a character level around 60. At that point, you can start planning investing your points a little bit more into Inferno to get that all the way to 75, or to increase the Vitality to 40 to have the maximum health established that we are going to have. It depends on to you. It's going to be either survivability or it's either going to be damage. Like I said, it depends on to you. Let's look equipment. The Fallen Lord Sword plus 10. This is going to give you attack power of 783, which is filthy. It's just very powerful, and as you can see, it has the Inferno requirement. It also has Burning as a status ailment, and yes, this is a very slow weapon, but since that is so high, you don't really have to hit the enemy that much. Ideally, with 2 hits, that's going to be more than enough for you to apply Burning to the enemy, although the enemy is not going to survive 2 hits, as you are seeing in the gameplay background, against this bad boy, because your basic attacks usually range between 10 to 1500 into damage, and then once you charge the heavy attacks, that's going to be 25 to 3000 damage. So yeah, the enemy is not really going to survive that long. Be sure to not miss out on the Prisoner's questline, because this is going to increase your fire damage quite a lot of the Roger's Delights, and also you are going to be using the Ring of Knight's Fire, which is going to increase your fire damage that much more. I like to use the Mine Owner's Ring just because of the stamina management. That's something that I like to do, and I have the Lord Armor. Remember that Lord Armor you can get it late game if you are following the Adir's questline, or if you have finished the game already with Adir's questline, you can start this class with the Lord's Armor. The main spell, the Catalyst, doesn't really matters that much. You are going to be able to use the spells that you want, but in reality we're not going to be using spells that much. The main damage is going to come from our weapon. Granted, because of your high Inferno, the Lava Burst that you have right here, this is one that I like actually quite a lot. It doesn't cost that much mana, and this thing on itself is going to deal 1k damage of range damage, so that's actually always quite amazing. We have the Severing Blades to take care of the AoE, although you don't really need to use this thing because your weapon, it's already, like, it has amazing range, so why would you want to be using this guy right here? This is a quintessential part of the build, the Infernal Weapon. That is the downside, and why this is not as good as a beginner build like the Holy One, because this, you literally get this spell until the endgame last area of the game, like quite literally the final area of the game. That's when you're going to get this spell. Although, if you get the Rogue or Lord class, again, if you beat the game by doing the Adir's ending and not cleansing the beacons, you can start this game as soon as you want with this fire thing. So my advice is that you start first. You do one playthrough with the regular bad ending of not cleansing the beacons, so that you can have this thing throughout the whole entirety of the rendition of the playthrough. Now the Fallen Lord Sword, it's actually not that difficult to get. You get this weapon mid-game. It's going to be on the far area, and as a matter of fact, let me show you real fast so that I am not have you going around circles. It's going to be on Lower Caldrath. So as you can see, yes, it is very mid-game. You still have quite some areas after this, so you are going to be able to enjoy the weapon quite some time after that. Now let's talk about the runes and why is this so freaking powerful, broken, delicious, and amazing. You can purchase these runes from Gerlins right here, and it's called Berlam. You have 2 tiers of these guys right here. They increase the Inferno scaling. Anarchos, for example, increases the Infernal scaling. Berlam, on the other hand, it increases the Infernal scaling that much more because it reduces the Radiance attribute. Luckily enough, we are not using the Radiance attribute scaling. That's something that I didn't like. This breaks the game, and ideally I think that this is going to get nerfed at some point. This breaks the game so hard because, like, for example, this is an agility gem, but they are like in between each other. Like, for example, this one, as you can see, agility scaling, increase the agility scaling. Most of the agility weapons have this kind of socket for the agility, but this one increases strength, so you would be using this on an agility weapon, which doesn't make sense. The same thing happens right here with the active. This is going to increase the strength scaling of a weapon, this is going to increase the agility scaling of the weapon, but ideally strength weapons mainly have this kind of slots. And as a matter of fact, let me showcase you that real fast with a strength weapon. So as you can see, the Sword of Skin and Tooth, this one has a strength scaling slot, which belongs to this little thing that we have right here. The maximum amount possible, you would be increasing the agility scaling, so that is not good, and that is very important for you to know, because this is actually the maximum amount of scaling that you can have with a weapon. It scales and it stacks. So you can have 3 of these bad boys, and ideally each one of these guys is going to give you a 100 to 150 damage in return thanks to the scaling. So that is why this weapon is so very broken once you apply the 3 gems, the 3 sockets right here. And just like that, you have a very powerful character that just melts and lasers through the enemy's health bars because of how powerful and how much raw damage you have. I want to stretch this out as much as possible because I know that people is going to be curious about the accessibility of the builds, and a lot of people is always asking, where do I get this, where do I get that. The spell that is going to be the quintessential part of this build, which is going to be Infernal Weapon, you're not going to get that until you reach the end game. So that is why, if you're wondering, I know that a lot of people is going to ask me as well, which is better? Is the Holy build better or is the Inferno build better? I think that these 2 guys right here are the meta of the game because of how powerful they get. But when it comes to accessibility, I'd say that for a first playthrough, a Holy build is much better because you get access to everything so much more. But once you have managed to get the Rogar Lord, and once you have managed to get the thing started sooner, then just by sheer power, this is better. Like, when it comes to damage, this is much, much, much better. Anyways, if you like the content, like and everything is super appreciated. No one's told you today that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful, beautiful person. I will be seeing you, goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day and goodbye.